The San Francisco 49ers have two very promising rookie quarterbacks in Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy was really the best rookie quarterback last year. Despite being picked with the last pick, being called Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy found a way to cement himself as probably the most relevant 49ers player going into the offseason, besides maybe Nick Bosa. And that's because of the way he performed. He didn't perform like a rookie, he performed like a young Joe Montana probably. I mean, this guy was on fire, honestly. And I know that a lot of people have been hating the comparisons this guy's getting, but his stats were absurd. He was first in so many categories before tearing his UCL. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about Brock Purdy's game, and we're also going to talk about his UCL injury and the time frame that we have confirmed and his surgery date. And then we're going to look over how Brock Purdy improves despite this elbow injury he sustained. And to round this out, we're going to talk about the quarterback room for the San Francisco 49ers and what I expect it to look like going into next year, who the starter will be and who the backup will be, and how this competition between Trey Lance and Brock Purdy may play out. So a brief recap of Brock Purdy's game and where he excelled. So a surprising part about Brock Purdy's game was his quickness in the pocket. And throughout the year, you saw this in his escapability. And this is attributed to his 10-yard dash because it's the same 10-yard dash that Christian McCaffrey has, which is just insanity. It's 1.55 seconds. And that's blistering, especially for a quarterback. And you could argue that actually matters a lot more than his 40-yard speed because with the 10-yard dash, it's really an indicator of his acceleration, which is very important with inside the pocket and those quick movements. Another key aspect of Brock Purdy's game is his accuracy because he has pinpoint accuracy many times and has the best arm accuracy-wise on the 49ers, including Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is something Trey Lance really needs to work on, but he's already said in this offseason he's not working on his throwing motion at all. But Brock Purdy did work on his throwing motion before the draft last year, actually adding 5 miles per hour to his ball, really strengthening his arm. And that was a concern for a lot of scouts coming out into the NFL. But he proved that his arm was plenty strong enough, and he really made most of the throws in the book. I mean, the only times you really saw him kind of flutter some and had bad throws was when he was dealing with that broken rib or whatever it was. It was insane. And the final thing that really impressed me about Brock Purdy's game last year was his ability to read defenses as well as stay poised. He was an extremely poised athlete, and I think this is mainly due to his ability to read defenses. And I think this started with his study habit and just the type of person he is, but he also has a great vision on the field. I mean, Brock Purdy is like one of those guys who could look at the safety when he was throwing the ball and said, "This is why I did it, is because the safety turned his hips and he went back and made another throw because that safety turned his hips." Brock Purdy's able to actually understand the defense extremely well, which is really where he got his poise from and gained the trust of so many teammates. And now we need to talk about his unfortunate injury, his UCL injury that really cost the San Francisco 49ers their season. But is it going to cost them next season, or is Trey Lance going to be the starter? We're covering that right now. The current report says that Brock Purdy is going to have his UCL surgically repaired on the 22nd of February. And this surgery is going to be an internal brace, and then he's expected to start throwing in 3 months and then be full go in 6 months. And the hope is that he'll be full ready for a training camp. And this is where it's great for Brock Purdy, because there was some indication at the start that it possibly could have been a Tommy John surgery, and that would put Brock Purdy out all next year. But right now, it's not looking like that's the case. They still need to go in and do the surgery, and on the 22nd, we'll know if they have to do a Tommy John. But right now, it's looking extremely good for Brock Purdy. And this is where Brock Purdy can actually continue to improve despite not being able to throw the football. And this is done by having a dedicated recovering period for the rest of his body and then starting adding mass throughout the rest of his body by using workouts where he doesn't actually have to use his elbow, so you can still do leg workouts and things like that. Another thing that Brock Purdy definitely needs to consider is watching a lot of film on himself, and I'm sure he's going to do this because he's the embodiment of what an NFL quarterback should be. I mean, last year, he really buried his head every single day in his playbook inside his locker. And another thing that Brock Purdy can do this offseason is add a little bit more weight to his frame just so he can sustain himself in the NFL season, because it's going to be a 17 weak season, hopefully more for the San Francisco 49ers next year. And I think by adding some more weight, Brock Purdy will be able to stay healthy. And as far as film study goes, Brock Purdy needs to make sure he's not just studying defenses, but also studying himself. What are his tendencies? I know some of his tendencies, like he likes to roll out to the left and throw to the left side of the field, which is honestly kind of weird for a right-handed quarterback because it's usually opposite than that. But regardless, Brock Purdy needs to realize if this is becoming something that defenses can do to him and take away the ability to do it, and if it affects his game negatively, and how he's going to respond to that. Another thing he needs to look at is what defenses did effectively against him last season. And some of those tendencies include rolling to his left and throwing to his left. He needs to make sure this doesn't become a habit that he's actually relying on consistently, but rather he's just taking what the defense is giving to him. And another thing that Brock Purdy really does a little bit too much is stepping out the back of the pocket. I'd like to see him start stepping up a little bit. Even though sometimes you can't step up, it would be nice to see him getting better at stepping into the pocket rather than fleeing the pocket before it breaks down. And this is where we get into our conversation about Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Because, well, Trey Lance is going to recover a little bit sooner than Brock Purdy. He's going to recover in about 3 weeks. He's going to be able to start running, and then shortly after that, it'll probably be a full go, which is a lot quicker than Brock Purdy since Brock Purdy's just getting his surgery right now. But for Trey Lance, he could be working on his throwing motion, but he's deciding not to, which I don't think is a great move because Brock Purdy is what you want your throwing motion to look like, and Trey Lance's isn't. And he has so much improvement that he could make, and that even Brock Purdy still is probably going to try to do when he has time and the ability to work on his throwing motion more, because he worked on it last offseason and his throwing motion was better than Lance's back then as well. So Trey Lance needs to realize that just because he's in the NFL, he still needs to work to improve, especially because he has such a limited experience. And I don't see this is a good thing for Trey Lance either, that Brock Purdy came in and played this well, because Brock Purdy won over the support of the locker room. There was a report that said that a lot of players in the locker room would probably be upset if Brock Purdy wasn't the starter for the San Francisco 49ers. And the San Francisco 49ers also already said they're not bringing back Jimmy Garoppolo. Kyle Shanahan said that they have two starters, Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. But I'm not too sure about that, because I think that Brock Purdy is a starter, but I'm wondering what Trey Lance is at this point. I mean, with the skill set that he had in college, if we're being honest, he probably deserved to be picked in the second round because of how limited his throws were. And Brock Purdy showed the complete opposite of this, and he came in and excelled. And that's something that I think Trey Lance really underestimated about leaving college extremely early. He kind of forfeited his ability to improve in college over time. And Brock Purdy did that, and he was also got good at reading defenses, and Brock Purdy played in a pretty tough situation and did great in college. I foresee this offseason Brock Purdy winning the quarterback competition with Trey Lance and remaining the starter for the San Francisco 49ers, and I see him actually improving, possibly going to his first Pro Bowl next year. Anyways, that's my thoughts on the Trey Lance and Brock Purdy situation and how I think Brock Purdy can improve and will improve next year. But now I wanted to hear your thoughts on this whole situation down below in the comments section. I'd also really appreciate it if you guys subscribed and liked this video. It helps out a ton, and I really appreciate the support from everyone that's watching.